means that he is the only white person in his family besides his. Why is Cole Palmer white when his grandfather and father are both black? It is worth noting that Palmer's two sisters are also black, which means that he is the only white person in his family besides his mother. Is Palmer not his father's biological son? In fact, Palmer's father has the ancestry of African immigrants, and his grandfather belongs to the Windrush generation who immigrated from St. Kitts to the UK in the 1860s. Logically, if Porter is his father's biological son, his skin color should be similar to his father's, which is exactly what we are discussing now. The only possible explanation may be that Palmer's mother has had several marriages. However, Palmer is actually a mixed race. His mother is British, and Palmer inherited his mother's white ancestry and his father's black ancestry. His mother's genes are more visible, so his appearance and skin color are closer to his mother, making him look white. Despite this, Palmer has never denied his St. Kitts child ancestry. His boots are embroidered with the saint.
All right, Shalom. First and foremost, we're going to give all glory and honor to the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakak, Radash. I would also like to give double honors to the apostles and elders like Great Millstone who teach and rule well. And I would like to give salutations to the hopeful elect out there. Shalom to you. This is the brother Barak, and we're back with another lesson. So this is going to be about the Israelite foreigners, and not only the Israelite foreigners, but you know, another name for the Israelite foreigners. You might hear them be called the speckled bird. You might hear them be called the outcast, and these are basically Israelites that look like the heathen nations. However, their seed line goes back to the seed line of Jacob. Okay? And that's a thing that a lot of people aren't going to understand. So you're going to have Israelites that look like Moabites, Israelites that look like Elamites, Israelites that look like Edomites. But they're, in fact, Israelites. All right? This is the book of Isaiah, chapter 56, verse 8. And it says, "The Lord, Yahweh Bashmi Shai, which gathereth the outcast of Israel, saith, Yet will I gather others to him besides those that are gathered unto him." And those outcasts are speaking about the Israelite foreigners, So, you had a lot of people that were scattered throughout these nations. For example, the Irish people, the many Italian people, and many different Asians, even there are even people in, even some of those Amalekites, so-called Amalekites, some of them are actually Jakes, which is crazy to say, but especially in the regions of the Mediterranean, where you had a lot of scattered Israelites, and what happened is they started looking like the heathens, So they start taking the complexion and the features of the heathen, as well as their heathen customs. They started dressing like the heathen, speaking like them. And that's when they became, quote, Gentiles, but they are still Israelites. So as you can see, I got this picture of this actor, Wentworth Miller. And this guy looks like a so-called white man. And this guy, he's an actor, he's in a lot of these shows like Prison Break, a couple of different movies, whatever. But he looks like a so-called white man, But this man, he's an Israelite. As you can see in this picture, you can see this man is an Israelite, which is his father in the middle. And, also we had the video I played before. The football player, soccer player, whatever you call it, Cole Palmer, who was also an Israelite, or appears to be an Israelite, because a lot of Israelites, there are actually some people that are, you call them tares, and when the scriptures go into the wheats and the tares, which we're going to bring out, and it's the book of Matthew 13:24, and it speaks about, and it says, "Another parable he put forth to them, saying, The kingdom of heaven is like a man who sowed good seed in the field. But when man slept, his enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat and went his way. So what it's speaking about is, you're going to have guys that look like Israelites, and I've met many people like this, but they don't care they're an Israelite, or they're not an Israelite at all, and their spirit is just completely different, You see this a lot, and that's why we have to test certain spirits, That's why we say this guy could be a Jake, he could be Israelite, or he could be a heathen, he could be an Edomite, But, that's why the Lord, he doesn't judge based on the outward appearance, right? So you have certain guys saying, well, this guy's not this color, so he's not an Israelite, And clearly, we're going to be looking like all different nations. But, Esau, Edom, which is the so-called white man, the devil, he made up these constructs of being, he made up these divisive, constructs, basically, He made up these categories, he made up the term white, he made up the term black, which the term black, is not even, that's a disrespectful term, I believe it was coined by a man, Johann Bubenblock. So basically, these were categories, basically, they put us in, you're not black, you're not Puerto Rican, you're not, Mexican, you're not Jamaican. No, you're an Israelite, So that's very important, because there's a lot of wheat and tares, people that look like Israelites, but they're not, So you got a lot of fucking people, they're gonna say, this guy's not an Israelite, this guy's an Edomite, And believe me, we as an Israelite foreigner, you're gonna catch hell from, Esau is gonna hate you, and some Jake's not gonna talk to you either, But then, if the person is a spiritual person, they might be, they might be willing to, speak to you. You just gotta test the spirit. Your spirit might resonate with the person, so you're gonna get hate from both sides, because you're not even a part of this world, But anyway, this is the another picture. You got this guy on the right, and you got a guy on the left, and it just goes to show you now we're gonna take on these customs of the heathen, So that's another very important thing, because you got 1 or 2 generations, 3 generations, and then you start looking like the complete, other seed, right? But it's the same seed, You plant an apple tree in a bunch of different countries. You plant an apple tree in Asia, you plant an apple tree in Mongolia, you plant an apple tree in, Australia, it's still an apple tree, It might come looking a little different, because of the climate, and, a couple of different, and because of adaptations, right? But it's still an Israelite, it's still, it's still the same seed. That's another important thing to understand, You're gonna get, and another thing is these curses, we're gonna have to catch hell, because this world is not meant to. We're not meant to have a great fucking life on this side. Now the Lord might give you gifts, though. He might give you gifts. He might have certain people have certain things more than others, and he might. There's a season for everything, There's a season for gifts, season for to catch hell. But that's another important thing. Once you find out you're an Israelite, then shit starts ramping up. You might start getting way more spiritual battles. Because when I found out I was an Israelite, how do I say this? Before I found out, I had a pretty ordinary, pretty just, straightforward, do the same things, I wouldn't deal with too many problems. But, when I found out I was an Israelite, after, again, you could tell people started to treat you differently. People start to, hate on you for no reason, People start, you might start getting sick more. You might not be able to sleep. You know, you might have demons and gang stalkers come past you. So that's very important. It's not just about skin color. It's about what you're going through. We're gonna go through the same things Yahweh Hashem Yahushai, put his son through. So that's another very important thing. This is the book of James 1:1. It says, James, a servant of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai, to the 12 tribes scattered among the nations, greetings. So we ain't just scattered in Africa, like these Israelites. They say that you got these guys saying that the Israelites are in Ethiopia, and they're just in a couple different countries in Africa, when we were literally scattered throughout the nations, to the point where we're speaking to other nations' languages. We forgot our native Paleo Hebrew tongue, right? We started looking like the other nations. As when you get salt, right? We are the salt of the earth. So when you get salt, right, and you put it on your food, right, you're not just putting it on one part of your food. No, you're going to put on every part of your food. It's scattered, right? Like same with being like the sand of the sea. So we're like uncountable, right? We're uncountable. And I believe, I don't know if it was Elder Apostle Tahar, but somebody said, there's I think like over a billion Israelites. Something like that. I don't know. I could be wrong. So, but there are a lot of a good percentage of the Earth population are Israelites. But but then you got to take into account that 2/3 of our people are going to get destroyed. So that's a very important thing. You don't want to be a part of that 2/3 number. But we were scattered, right? So you're gonna be looking like Asians. You're gonna have Israelites looking like Indians, and that's just for a spiritual person to understand. If you're not spiritual, you're just not gonna understand it. If you don't receive that, you were just never meant to receive it in the first place. Because the Lord is same thing like when the Lord was dealing with King David. King David, they looked at his stature and said, no way this man could be a king. But the Lord was not looking at him like that. This is the book of Genesis 28, verse 14. Here it says, your descendants will be like the dust of the earth, and you will spread out to the west and to the east, to the north and to the south. All peoples on earth will be blessed through you and your offspring. And so, this is when the Lord was speaking to Jacob, right? And basically saying, you're gonna be blessed, right? You're gonna be scattered, and you're gonna have descendants, as basically the sand of the sea, like the dust of the earth. We can't even count that amount, right? So a good portion of us are Israelites, and now the thing is, does it really matter? Well, it matters, yes, but you have to be part of the elect. You have to be striving to be part of that hopeful elect, right? And we're gonna the elect men are really gonna get we're really gonna get how do I say this, like we're gonna get tested, right? Almost like a gold being tested in a furnace, or silver being refined, right? Your elect men are going to be constantly tried. They're going to be spiritually tempted, spiritually physically tempted. People will argue with you for no reason, right? And I'm not trying to go on a tangent, but what I'm trying to say is we're gonna if you want to be a part of that elect number, you're gonna have to basically it's gonna be a you have to know what you're getting yourself into, right? It's similar to like like you just gotta know what you're dealing with. right? So that's another important thing. Yeah, there are many Israelites out there, but not all of them are even calling on the name of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai. So yeah, so what would that matter if you're an Israelite? But if you're not calling these proper names, you're still using JC and still using Guadalupe. Why does that even matter? You know what I'm saying? So that's another important thing. Now I'm gonna get this last scripture. All right, this is the book of 2 Kings, verse 5. Chapter 5, Salakia, verse 26. And it says, we'll start at the top. So it says, "Where do you go?" Elisha said, "Where did you go, Gehazi?" And he said, "Your servant did not go anywhere." Then he said to him, "Did not my heart go with you when the man turned back from his chariot to meet you? Is it time to receive money and to receive clothing, olive groves, vineyards, sheep, and oxen, male and female servants? Therefore the leprosy of Naaman shall cling to you and your descendants forever." And he went out with his presence leprous, as white as snow. So, that's what happens when you see these people. Some of these people, they look white too, because, they're descendants of Gehazi. So you have lepers, and you have people that have it worse than others. So you have some people with leprosy where, they'll have, you can still see their dark appearance, when some people got it where, they're completely white looking. So that also goes to show you that this is not just, a black Hebrew Israelite, thing, we're going to come in all different colors, that was just a construct, created by, Esau, man, to divide people, so that's what I wanted to speak about. You're going to have Israelite foreigners, you're going to have, people who also, have that leprosy, so they're gonna look white. You're gonna have people that they basically were scattered, and their seed started looking like the heathens, but they still kept the same seed, because their seed line came from the seed of their fathers. So I wanted to bring that out, and so hopefully this was edifying. I'm gonna wrap that up right here. I want to say, Kahala, Yahweh, Ba'Shem, Yahushai, Ba'Shem, Rakah HaKodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone who teach and rule well. I'm going to give salutations to the Lord's elect, the hopeful elect in 1/3. And this is Brother Barak, and I would like to say Shalom.